Hiya fam. Today we are gonna get weird. If you have peeked at my blog lately, you might have noticed that I've made several posts about a sketchbook swapapalooza. Today we're gonna touch on that briefly as we say goodbye to Dave. So the Sketchbook Swapapalooza is a sketchbook exchange between myself and 14 other artists. Each artist gets their own sketchbook, they set it up, they ship it off to the next person. Each person will draw in the sketchbook, or paint, or do whatever they so choose, ship it to the next person, and at the end, when this is all over in mid-2023, each person is going to get their own sketchbook back, and it's going to have the work of 15 different artists in there. So I personally call it Sketchbook Swapapalooza because clearly I have way too much fun giving mundane things ridiculous names. So when the swap was in the planning stages, I had announced fairly early that I wasn't quite certain which sketchbook I was going to use, but I was gonna name it Dave. First off, because I can. Frankly. What are you gonna do about it, nerd? Second off, the sketchbook, or Dave, is going to be traveling the world, visiting multiple artists, and is not going to be returning home to me until mid-2023. The sketchbook is going to commemorate its own travels during that time, or as I like to call them, Dave's wacky adventures. And also, I guess, due to the state of the world, I can say that my partner and I have pretty much not left the house in a year. So we're also kind of living vicariously through Dave a little bit. Or, trash talking Dave and his ability to travel, depending on how frustrated we might be at the time. So, sorry fam, I am a wicked oddball. In my defense, this was discussed between myself and fellow artists who were participating, so I can say safely, at the bare minimum, I am not alone in my strangeness here. Just saying. Several of the features that were built into my sketchbook were the result of basically, us as a group discussing what we wanted to see in our books and everything. By the time you're seeing this, Dave's wacky adventures will already be underway. He may have already arrived to the next artist. So I just wanted to share some details on there. So what am I gonna do? I'm gonna move the book because we're gonna use a different book. So I'm gonna just put that down. Okay. So this is Dave. This is a Stillman Birn Delta series. It is a mixed media sketchbook. I picked it because I had it on hand and no one else was using one of these. There are 28 sheets or 56 pages of 270 GSM ivory cold pressed paper. The spine is appropriately named Dave's Wacky Adventures, which I don't know how well you can see that, but yeah. So years from now, when this is sitting on my shelf, I can look back and know exactly which sketchbook I'm looking at. So on the inside cover, there's a few things here. Along the top, I put just, this sketchbook is named Dave and belongs to Ginger Snaps. The details of the book, Stillman Birn, etc., that I just told you. I did note that there is a test page in the back, and then my little love note. So, what does it say? It says, There is enough paper in this sketchbook for everyone to take 3 or 4 pages if they'd like. Please feel free to get wild. Swatch or sketch or paint or whatever you'd like. There is no such thing as bad art, I promise. And feel free to leave a stamp on the back cover if you'd like, or mark each stop, to mark each stop on Dave's wild adventures. No pressure, no rules, just you, me, and Dave. And then all caps, adventure awaits, huzzah. So we could just pause for a moment and just acknowledge that I am a huge nerd, and I was having clearly way too much fun making this. When I wrote this, it sounded way cooler in my head. Also, Dave's wild adventures? No, I'm sorry. Dave has wacky adventures. So there's that. On the other side, so I basically set this up with the first names of the artists involved. Set up basically much like what you would see on a band t-shirt when they go on tour. It just says Sketchbook Swapapalooza 2021 to 2023. And then on the side here it says AKA Travel Itinerary for Dave's Wacky Adventures. About 1 month to sketch and then about 1 month to mail, which is the schedule that we will be following. So I'm just going to pause and just kind of give you guys a close-up on this before I move on. Just to make sure. So that's the first page with my super silly love note. And then, yeah, so this is the inside cover. So let's go to the back. One thing that several artists were interested in was having stamps from each person added, basically like passport stamps. So my back cover is set up similarly to a US passport, and I wrote, leave your mark. Feel free to stamp, doodle, or mark whatever variety of Dave was here you choose. Again, clearly was having way too much fun. I did put my stamp, of course, featuring the first moon landing because I am a nerd. And then I just wrote underneath Ginger Snaps, Boston, USA. Also just got very splash happy. So I'm going to pause again just to kind of give you another close up. And yeah. First moon landing. Oh yeah. Also back here is that test page that I mentioned, which works out well because I used it. Now let's peek at the actual art. So the group of artists that I'm doing this exchange with is largely interested in botanical illustration. Everyone has different painting media techniques and different subjects. Not everyone is, or not everyone paints botanical illustrations. But that's, I guess, the most common art that we're interested in, or one of. So when I was getting this set up and I was trying to decide what I was going to paint in here, I was discussing it with my partner, and I basically said, well, a lot of these guys are botanical illustrators. Their art is precise, and it's detailed, and it's layered, and it's great, whereas my art is basically splashy splash and tutus. So my partner challenged me basically with just, plants can have tutus too, and mentioned PD Piranha, and pulled up on his phone PD Piranha, which is a character from the Super Mario Brothers games. And, an idea was born. Eureka! I had to do something with it. So my first on the spread, so I had to start with my ballerina kitty cat fairy princess, which is this guy right here. Or as I noted, the whimsical nonsense that started it all. Basically, this is the subject material that dove me into the painting style, or this particular brand of nonsense. So it felt fitting to start with this. But then I have my gorgeous PD Piranha over here. And, you know, of course, because what's life without a punchline? Botanical art can have two twos too. Of course. Not too shabby. So my work with Dave is now done. So I have finished what I am going to do in terms of what art I am putting in. And this is going to be on its merry way to the next place. But we're not finished yet. I also have a second sketchbook. Actually, let me just give you guys a close-up on these pages too. I will have another like up-close shot of these on my blog as well, just if you want to see pictures that don't involve my not great lighting. Yeah. Second sketchbook. There's a second sketchbook. So I'm going to put this down. This one, I'm not going to show the other contents of the sketchbook. I'm just going to show what I personally have done in it. This is the first sketchbook that has been forwarded to me. It is a hand-bound sketchbook with arches or arch cold pressed paper inside. The back cover has a pocket, and it basically a card. It's basically like it's like the checkout card that you would have in the back of a library book. It's very nice. There was a lot of detail put into this. So the artist who made this book loved my PD Piranha, and she made a special request. She wanted an asparagus. So obviously I'm in it to win it. Let's paint an asparagus. So actually let me... Yeah. So I did get, you know, a full spread in this book. Now, I will admit, this was super nerve-wracking, especially considering this is the first sketchbook that's not mine. Honestly, I swear to you, I thought this was rough paper and not cold press because I was so wound up and stressed about it. Like, basically, when I first started, I guess, dramatic reenactment is I would literally, like, be ready to go, and I would freeze, and I'd be like, no. And I'd do it again. And I'm like, no. And this was stressful. But on this side, so I marked Ginger Attempts Botanical Illustration, because, of course, you know, I'm having my jolly fun. And we have my ballerina kitty cat fairy princess and my ballerina asparagus fairy princess and the punny exchange. So the asparagus says, how does my tutu not fall off? And the ballerina kitty cat fairy princess says, because you're so fresh. And just confused silence or magic, gasp, and even more confused silence, and okay, fine, rubber bands, but magic rubber bands, gasp. You know, what's life without a punchline, right? I needed a pun, man. So the paint markers that I used to write this had very firm nibs. So they skipped a tiny bit, and I expected this. I did test. I had a little bit of this paper on hand, so I did test. And I expected it. And I very excitedly reported back to my fellow artists, you know, if anybody is nervous about messing up this particular sketchbook, don't worry, I got you covered. My puns have feathered. And some people, you know, had that collective sigh of relief of just, oh, okay, I don't have to worry about being the first person to, oops, we already established this. You know, it's going well so far. I think that was the only thing that had me not panicking, but, you know, that was the only thing that I can say was an actual oops on here. So that's good. And also, pleased to report, the artist whose book this is loves her ballerina asparagus fairy princess. And then on the other side, this, I have marked this work in progress, Ginger's Outlaw palette for Fugitive Project. So I'm making an Outlaw palette because, again, I need a ridiculous name for everything. One of my projects that I am currently working on involves using a lot of fugitive paints, and I'm very excited, and I will share that as soon as I have something that is worth sharing and not just a hot mess of notes and fugitive paints. But I figured, you know, I'm working on setting that palette up. This would be a good way to fill the space. I also noted, if you have any feedback or recommendations, let me know, because, you know, I am on the market for fugitive paints right now. I'm just saying. So, you know, this ultimately has now set this precedent so that every sketchbook that I work in, for the Swapapalooza is probably going to have a plant in a tutu, possibly one of my silly characters in a tutu. There absolutely must be a pun of some variety, because what's life without puns? And then if I get a full spread, the other page will be dedicated to some work in progress or other. You know, it's probably not going to always be like this, but just, you know, just something. So I've set a pretty high standard for myself, but I feel like these are pretty good guidelines for me to follow, or, you know, I've content-wise laid a pretty good foundation for what I'm going to do for these books from here. So I'm really excited. I am a wee bit slow in getting these into the mail, which that is my bad, but at least content-wise, I think we've got this. So I am excited to see where it goes. I will, of course, keep you updated along the way, because, you know, where else are you going to get asparagus puns in your life? I'm just saying. My question for you, my fellow mess makers, is, have you ever participated in a sketchbook exchange? Do you work in sketchbooks at all? If so, what do you draw? And do you have any recommendations for plants that might look good in tutus? Because I need like 14 more of these. And that is all. No, let me give you like a close-up of these too, just for the sake of being thorough. So there is my gorgeous puns, and the feathering, you can really see it on Fresh, if you're curious. And again, I'm gonna put pictures of these on my blog so that you can see it without the motion sickness of me holding it up awkwardly. Actually, if we want to get it all in frame. Yeah. So that is it. Questions, concerns, sarcastic remarks, please do not be shy. Otherwise, until next time, take care.